I want to turn next, because one of the biggest challenges we face, the reason why our deficit is so huge and we keep borrowing in debt, is the energy sector. The energy sector is a significant player in our crisis, and this document addresses a bit of that. And the document actually says that the government had committed itself to embark on, quote, an ambitious reform agenda in the energy sector, which is expected to limit its growing fiscal costs. Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, what does this look like, this ambitious reform in the energy sector? What would it look like?
Well, Ivan, there are structural reforms that we have to implement under the program. And some of these reforms, we started doing them, but not as ambitious as we are going to look at. But let me just add to a very important point that was made earlier about the unemployment by the World Bank report. I haven't seen that report. I would like to see to understand the contours of the analysis in that report. Then also, my brother Singapore is talking about bad conditions that the fund program is going to bring to the economy, talking about food prices are going to go up, and they reference to food inflation in the past. The reality is that we all know why food prices went up. We know why petroleum prices went up. You know, so sometimes when our friends on the other side talk, it's as if they are in the same. But we all know the circumstances, the external factors that affected all of us, not just in Ghana, across the world. He kept saying that petroleum prices will increase. In the contrary, petroleum prices are decreasing. You know, and that is a statement of fact. I can understand when people talk about credibility, that election is coming next year, and therefore, what is the commitment of the government to achieve the targets that we set for ourselves? I can understand that because in the last election, under the last IMF program, we suffered credibility deficit. You know, and that was the program from 2015. By 2016, they had not met any of the targets. Not a single target was met by the then government. And so I am even surprised, for talking about credibility when we all know that they are the grandfathers of credibility deficit. We had to come in and then work with the IMF to achieve the target, the intended targets under the last program. But I can assure you that we are committed at the highest level. His Excellency the President is committed. Those of us at the Ministry of Finance under our leader, the Honorable Ken Operator, we are committed to following through. Dr. Teo also talked about the fiscal consolidation, which I think is a very important component of this program. Increasing revenue, tax revenue, as a percentage of GDP from 15% by end 2022 to 18% will require huge effort. Fortunately for us, the 5.1 percentage adjustment, fiscal adjustment, which in total we are supposed to do under the program, about 3.1 percentage points of that have already been passed in the 2023 budget. We factored that into the 2023 budget, and all the revenue and expenditure measures to deliver the 3.1% have already been passed by Parliament. And so we are committed to this, and we will do this together with the people of Ghana cooperating and supporting us. Now, to the energy sector question. As I said, there are a number of structural reforms that we have to implement. The energy sector is key. Pricing is an issue. We already have discussed automatic tariff adjustment and also fuel pricing index to macro indicators like inflation and exchange rate, so that we do not accumulate arrears. Under the program, we are not required to accumulate new arrears. Okay. And so we will have to make sure that we are able to restructure the debt so that we can be able to pay, clear the arrears, because the fund program also requires us to develop an arrears clearance plan. So we need to be able to come up with this plan to enable us to clear the arrears that are accumulated, the legacy debts that have been accumulated in the energy sector, but also to keep current on future invoices that are coming. And this we are able to do when we have a cost recovery pricing. In the energy sector also, we want to improve on the efficiency of the agencies particularly ECG, in the collection of their bills. We know that they have embarked on an ambitious operation. They are collecting their debt. They've collected 3.1 billion cedis. We think that this should be sustained. It should not just be a 9-day wonder. It should be sustained, and we are determined to support ECG in particular to reform their collection system, to digitalize their collection system, and to be able to reach out everywhere to improve on their collection. It's not just about ECG, but also other agencies within the energy sector need to be made more efficient so that they do not accumulate debt, and they also can operate to reduce the losses, technical losses and commercial losses, so we do not accumulate new areas. It is also important to say that we have to restructure some of the power purchase agreements that we signed with our partners, the IPPs. The reality is that in the past, particularly under the NDC government, they signed contracts that committed us to take or pay provisions, which meant that we'll have to pay for energy use or not use once they declare availability. And this has also been one of the reasons we've accumulated arrears. And so we are reforming the sector to ensure that we pay for only energy. We don't want to pay for capacity, not to even talk about excess capacity. We want to pay for energy. We want to be able to pay them in local currency. So we want to embark on this reform that will ensure that the energy sector is robust, that will ensure also that reliability of supply of power is assured, and then that will ensure that the sector generates its own revenue. Energy is a commercial commodity, and this is why there's no reason that the government should use the budget money, which is meant for health infrastructure, educational infrastructure, to pay IPPs. It is a commercial commodity. We should be able to generate the revenue that can pay its cost. But whilst doing this, we are also sensitive to the plight of the poor. And so we will continue to support the lifeline tariff mechanism that we have in the tariff. We even want to redefine the lifeline tariff in order to ensure that it serves its purpose. That's one of the reforms that we want to pursue in the energy sector.
Okay, thank you very much. And so that's a bit of the cushion also. Dr. Tui Champon, how deep should the energy sector reforms be?
It has to be very deep. Luckily, in the document, the IMF has actually tasked the government to submit an updated energy sector recovery plan by the end of next month. So that's June. And within that document, Honorable has talked about some of them, but there are like 5 key things. We've talked about the first one, which is the tariff adjustments. Again, we've talked about the renegotiation of the power purchase agreement. But then the key thing is to reduce the take-or-pay liability. So I was a little bit surprised when the new contracts that we signed and extended, they still had some of those clauses and obligations within that. That sort of flies in the face of what this commitment under the IMF program seeks to do. The third thing is really to improve the operational performance of the SOEs in the energy sector. So Honorable talks about ECG particularly. But I think if you extend that conversation to all of our state-owned enterprises, many of them are leaking money and hemorrhaging, substantive amounts of money. In the document, the IMF report, there's a table in there that they show the example of Cocoa Board with its profit and loss. And you will be shocked, if you go back since 2015, thereabouts, there's not been a single year that it's actually had a net, profit. It's significantly, consistently, since 2016, been operating with a net loss. That is not, sustainable for Cocoa Board or indeed for many of our state-owned enterprises that have serious issues with, financial viability. The third and fourth on the energy sector is really about subsidies that need to be reformed, and then things to do with distribution losses as well. But there's one fundamental thing that we probably haven't discuss, or maybe we'll come to, which is that in this document, and probably the first time that I have seen in any IMF document, they're talking about serious governance reforms. In paragraph 43, page 22 of the document, it says that, and I will quote here, the performance in government effectiveness, regulatory quality, and control of corruption have deteriorated over the last 10 years in Ghana. This is in the document. And a lot of the issues that we're discussing here, part of it is, the root cause has to do with really how government runs the state machinery, and to an extent how it manifests in terms of checking corruption. And within that, there are a number of some proposed solutions, but I think a few ones are really interesting, and we can come to that to discuss. But two quick ones that I will kind of highlight there is a new act or law that is meant to be passed called the Conduct of Public Officers Act. And this is meant to address some weaknesses in the existing asset declaration regime. And then at the GRA itself, they're supposed to have a reinforcement of the internal governance framework. So this will include things like internal audit, risk management, and internal affairs. And then our infamous or famous Auditor General's report and its recommendations. Here there are some proposals there on even passing some guidelines for emergency expenditure, management. What was missing on the governance side is really what we do with campaign financing, which is one of the elephants in the room. But you could argue that that is really outside of the remit of the IMF, but it's really fundamental. But I was glad to see some, attempts on the governance side to introduce reforms that would, in a way, limit the behavior of some of our, political appointees.
I mean.